Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Glad you're here. Glad to be with you. I hope that you're well and bearing up in the heat of this early summer heat spell. So, yeah, if you have any particular topics that you'd like to address, please do write it in the live chat, and I'll try to address them. I've been talking over the past 5 weeks about the Brahma Viharas, the heavenly abodes, the qualities, the awakened qualities of heart. So these beautiful qualities of metta, goodwill, benevolence, kindness, friendship, caring, connection, benevolence, karuna, usually just compassion is the word that's generally agreed upon. For metta, it's often translated as love, but I find these more nuanced words to be perhaps more accessible when we're extending this metta to all beings. And if love is a word, also, of course, it's the fullness of metta. So karuna, compassion, mudita, resonant joy or sympathetic joy or empathetic joy, those different nuances again. And then upekkha, equanimity, or sometimes equipoise. Analio uses equipoise, and another translation I heard recently is perspective. To have perspective, and I often think of upekkha like that, to have this big view that there are so many causes and conditions that are unfolding in each moment, that give rise to each moment of experience, that we can't possibly be in control, we can't possibly even fully understand what gives rise to each moment. And upekkha is not only listed in the Brahma Viharas, boundless states, or immeasurables, the four immeasurables, but it's also one of the awakening factors. So I'm going to read a poem from this book I've been really enjoying, The First Free Women, Poems of the Early Buddhist Nuns. So these are women who came and practiced at the time of the Buddha, and they were women from very rich, wealthy, prosperous, noble families, women who were families from artisans and tradespeople, of course, the different castes, and even women who came from the lowest castes, and all of these women just dropped their designations and in the Buddhist community, men, of course, the men as well, the same thing. That was one of the distinctive things about the Buddhist community, that he didn't recognize caste. Anyway, this poem is talking about the awakening factors, and it's called Genta. Genta is the name of the nun, conqueror. And she begins, I was forever getting lost until one day the Buddha told me, to walk this path, you will need 7 friends: mindfulness, curiosity, courage, joy, calm, stillness, and perspective. For many years, these friends and I have traveled together, sometimes wandering in circles, sometimes taking the long way around. There were days when I thought I couldn't go on. There were days when I thought I was finally beaten. It's scary to give all of yourself to just one thing. What if you don't make it? Oh, my heart, you don't have to go it alone. Train yourself to train just a little more gently. I'll read it again. And so just to remind you of the awakening factors in the words that we more often hear them. Mindfulness, investigation. So she calls curiosity, or the translator calls curiosity. Investigations, curiosity, I think that's great. Courage. So that's usually energy. So courage is interesting. It has a certain focus. Joy, same word, is the awakening factor, joy. Calm, usually translated tranquility. Stillness, usually translated concentration. So that's quite interesting. And perspective, usually translated equanimity. So that's kind of what made me think of this poem. So, so these 7 awakening factors, 7 friends. I was forever getting lost until one day the Buddha told me, to walk this path, you will need 7 friends: mindfulness, curiosity, courage, joy, calm, stillness, and perspective. For many years, these friends and I have traveled together, sometimes wandering in circles, sometimes taking the long way around. There were days when I thought I couldn't go on. There were days when I thought I was finally beaten. It's scary to give all of yourself to just one thing. What if you don't make it? Oh, my heart, you don't have to go it alone. Train yourself to train just a little more gently. So many beautiful thoughts in there, so many beautiful insights about practice. The gentleness, the allowing to get lost sometimes, to feel lost. The recognition that this in her statement, this was her deepest orientation in her life. And of course, she left home. She was a nun and not engaging in the world as we are. And yet it can still be our deepest orientation to awaken. And then the gentleness, the patience that allows for gentleness. And all of these qualities touch on equanimity. And the essence of equanimity is allowing the unfolding of life as it is. Just, there's a deep sense of balance and acceptance. An acceptance which is not a resignation, an acceptance which is that quality of not knowing, of recognizing that we're not in control. And at the same time, there is the capacity to keep that deep orientation. And that is where our first friend, mindfulness, comes in. Because with mindfulness, we can know when we're going around in circles. We can know when we feel just like giving up. Or we can know when we feel afraid, like we're lost. And mindfulness gives us that quality of space, that quality of openness, that quality of non-judging to continue on step by step, just this step, this breath, this next sitting, this next thing to do in my life, cooking a meal, doing the dishes, walking the dog. So mindfulness and equanimity and all the awakening factors keep us in that orientation toward awakening. Equanimity really is a quality that begins to take root and thrive and manifest as we deepen in our practice. There are many contributing factors to equanimity. Sometimes upekkha is translated as an unshakable balance of mind. And these qualities of these contributing factors, these kind of the elements of practice that nurture equanimity are ethics, is one. That we have this sense of blamelessness, that the mind is not agitated, the mind is not disturbed by harm that we've intentionally done toward another, that we've in some way exploited or harmed, or harmed by omission, harmed by not acknowledging perhaps the pain of another, or the need of another. So that sense of integrity, that sense of ethical integrity, is so important to maintain that sense of balance and kind of groundedness in life, in the unfolding of life as it is. Recognizing that, yes, we can respond, and yes, we must respond. Every moment of life is, in a way, a response, but that we're not in control. So, and then another contributor to equanimity is our practice of insight. And I don't know if you were here, you were here last week, if you joined the sitting last week, and I'm reading Ruth King's book, Mindful of Race, which is it's an excellent book, and it talks about how mindfulness practice can help us to really do the inner work that is needed for us to really respond skillfully to end racism, first of all in ourselves, as much as we can. These deeply embedded habits of mind are sometimes very hard to eradicate, and yet we don't have to fully eradicate these habits of mind, just like any habit of mind, to experience freedom from it. We can with mindfulness, just recognizing that the habit of mind is is manifesting enables us to not be hooked by it, not be caught up in it. And so, so she uses, and she talks about the three characteristics, which is anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanence, unreliability or unsatisfactoriness, suffering, and non-self or selflessness. And so, and she has these three words that she uses. It's not personal, it's not permanent, it's not perfect. It's not personal, so it's anatta, selfless. It's not permanent, it's anicca. And it's not perfect, it's dukkha. So those, I like those three words. It's the three P's. So recognizing and really integrating into our mind stream, into our hearts, into our whole being, that there's nothing in life that is permanent, perfect, or personal. You know, yeah, we take things so personally, and they're just formations. They're habits. They're ways that they're thought forms, and we don't have to identify with them. So, and this is, you can see how powerful this is for anti-racism work. You know, that we don't have to make it personal. Like it's a horrendous evil in the world, and I use that word knowing that it's not often used in Buddhism, but it's appropriate. It does so much harm. These racist ideas and words and actions, and yet it's somehow became embedded in many cultures, and people grew up with it, and so, but it's not personal. And when we see it that way, you know, we can steer clear of guilt and hatred in responding, in working to uproot it, in becoming skillful at uprooting it from wherever we're coming from, whether we're a person of color or whether we're a white person. We can, or identify in different ways. There's a whole spectrum of ways that people identify. So bringing that equanimity, bringing that quality of recognizing that it's not personal, it's certainly not perfect, and nor is it permanent. And it, just as it came into being, so it can dissolve. And may it be so. May it be so in our lifetimes that we can end racism. So equanimity, the ground of equanimity, living from equanimity. And so just to say a few more words about these Brahma Viharas. I don't know if I conveyed this to you in one of the earlier talks, but one of the images that I really like that Bhikkhu Analayo used to describe the four Brahma Viharas is that metta is like the noonday sun. You know, it shines down on everything, evenly on everything. That karuna is like the sunrise. Sorry, the sunset. The sunset that there's a quality of beauty to it. There is a quality of warmth, and at the same time, the darkness of night is close by, and so that sense of loss of light, we're touching it. We're touching it in mudita, so that image of the sunrise. And then the mudita is this sunset, jumping ahead. Sunset for karuna, and mudita, the sunrise, so the bird song, the sun shining through the dew on the leaves and the grass, illuminating them, sparkling, that beautiful quality of joy and celebration of life in mudita. And then for equanimity, the full moon. So there's a coolness to equanimity, and yet it is a reflection of the sun. The light comes from the sun, and upekkha is like the full moon. And I find that image very beautiful. It's and all of these Brahma Viharas work together and balance one another in their in the way that because sometimes with karuna we can get so lost in the pain, and equanimity brings us back into balance. It says that karuna, compassion, is not about getting lost in the pain. It's about connecting to it, and at the same time having an open heart and caring. So all of those coming together. So upekkha enables us to see the unfolding of the joys and sorrows, the gains and losses of life from this space of balance, that we don't get caught up. We can see, that there's harm being done, and we can see that there are beautiful actions being offered to reach out and help. And of course, the beautiful actions give us joy, and the harm that's being done can evoke compassion, and equanimity keeps us from losing our sense of perspective. So that's the word that was used in the poem that I read, perspective. Equanimity can give us that big view that, yes, we're in the thick of coronavirus. We're in the thick of this eruption of racism, and seeing the racism in society, and recognizing that all of this is unfolding in its own way. So again, not detachment, not a sense of distance, because upekkha can have this quality of intimacy. One of the translations of upekkha is standing in the midst of all this. Standing in the midst of all this. So, so that we're in the midst. We're not standing apart. And at the same time, we have perspective. So cultivating equanimity, and And so equanimity is, it doesn't, the first three of the Brahma Viharas have more of a felt tone to them. And equanimity is more subtle. It's, it may be a little more difficult to discern. And so I'm going to guide us into a guided meditation on equanimity, and then we'll move into a meditation, just openness, a sense of openness, which actually equanimity leads very, very easily into this quality of openness and spaciousness. So please take a posture that feels balanced and stable and alert, with the back straight, upright. And bring your attention to the heart center. Sorry. Could you please close the door?
Yeah, don't you want a bigger fan? She's hot.
Please. Equanimity. My dog is here, and my husband is worried about the dog because she's panting a little bit. It's a little warm in this room. He's a doting daddy. It's Father's Day. Yeah, I forgot to mention it's Father's Day. So to all those dads there, yeah, happy Dad's Day. So we'll start again. So finding your posture, feeling a sense of balance and stability and uprightness, and bringing attention to your heart. And so bring to mind a time when you found this quality of stillness, of non-preference, of not getting caught up in attachment to preference. When things didn't work out, weren't happening exactly as you wished, exactly as you wanted. So sometimes, just there's a real life example that happened with me just a few moments ago with my husband opening the door, and and speaking. And so, so I can, although I won't say that I was in a state of equanimity or non-preference. I was really wanting him to withdraw and close the door and go back. I wanted to go back to my guiding. And at the same time, I can find balance, and I can regain or have some space around it. It doesn't have to become a thing, big deal. It can just be addressed and let go. So coming from equanimity, I can recognize that it comes from his, the things that make up his mind, that his mind, one of the concerns that my husband has is for the comfort and well-being, and especially of our dog that he's responsible for, and for me, and that when I'm the recipient of that, I often really appreciate it, and so it's so recognizing that there are different perspectives that I can take to understand how something unfolded as it did. A little thing that happened. So remembering a time when you could be stable and not get caught in preference, not get caught in grasping or resisting or avoiding or wanting something that wasn't there. Or disconnecting. Another way of reacting is disconnecting. So, and what is the quality? What is that quality of heart? It's subtle. It might feel spacious. It might feel still. It might feel open. It might feel silent. However you connect to that, see if you can find that quality of equanimity in this moment. As if it's a light shining in your heart. And radiating that equanimity. Radiating that equanimity as if you're opening the curtains around that light that's shining in your heart. Opening it to the front, opening it to the right, opening it behind, to the left, above, and below, and within. That soft, gentle moonlight of equanimity, radiating within your whole being and beyond your being, radiating boundlessly. Boundlessly doesn't necessarily mean that it's a certain amount. That's the meaning of boundless or immeasurable. You don't have to have a sense of it being enormous. Just radiating outwards and radiating within in all directions. That quality of equanimity, balance, openness, perspective. Things are just as they are. And you can just say the word upekkha if that's helpful to you to reconnect with this quality of balance. Or you can say unshakable balance. Or you can remember that experience that you connected with to evoke equanimity. You can bring to mind the vicissitudes of life. Recognizing that we are not in control. Gain, loss, pain, pleasure. Fame, disrepute. Or fame and not being known, and being kind of looked up to and highly respected and falling into disrepute. These can happen so quickly, coming from conditions that are not in our control. And as much as you can, just reconnecting with this quality of equanimity, balance. And whenever you like it, or if you like, you can just allow the focus on equanimity to transition into a quality of openness, a quality of spaciousness within and beyond the body. If the breath is present in your awareness, let it be just in the background. Mindfulness is the first of the awakening factors. And so when the mind is getting caught up, getting lost, drifting, going into past, future, or grasping, or resisting, or avoiding, or disconnecting, mindfulness, when it's present, will let us know. And then there's a stepping, a letting go of those ways that we get caught up or go around in circles, or as the poem was describing. So bring mindfulness, if mindfulness had gone to sleep or had a little been lost for the moment. The way to cultivate mindfulness is to recall it. So let's dedicate our practice. May our own practice toward liberation and the integrity of our lives support the happiness, well-being, and liberation of all beings. So we have a few minutes left, and please, if you have something that you'd like to share or a question that you'd like to bring up, please do so on the live chat. Another way that we can understand equanimity with regard to our practice is that whether we are getting caught in reactivity or whether we are remaining in equanimity when we experience challenging, difficult, painful circumstances of life, it all feeds our practice. So when we get caught, when we get angry, that can be a mirror for us when mindfulness reemerges, when we remember to be mindful. Sati has this sense of remembering. So when sati manifests, then we can recognize that this anger It's painful. This anger is something that's arising because we're taking it personally. We're reacting from a sense of a self. So it's we're making it personal. And that when we don't stoke the anger, when we don't feed it with story, with image, with me versus you, or self versus other, that it will dissipate, that it will diminish and will fade away. So, and the same with grasping, with longing for what is not there, or wanting something that we can't hold on to. So, again, whether we're recognizing that in the moment, when we're recognizing this is pleasant, and I realize also that I can't hold on to this, this also is anicca, it's impermanent. That's the equanimous perspective. That's a perspective that's more awake, it's more free, it's more liberated, and than holding. And if we're holding, if we're grasping, if we're leaning into wanting something that's not there, then with our friend Sati, when we remember, that can be a reflection. Oh, yes, grasping. That's the grasping mind. That's manifesting, and I see it. So the reflection, life reflects back to us when we're aware, when we're open, when we're not caught in taking everything personally. Life can teach us. And we can say, oh yeah, that's painful. That's painful to always be leaning into and trying to get something that I don't have. Can I stay with things as they are? So thank you. So I want to mention Donna. So when we were gathering together, everybody, if you could, you would give Donna. So I'm glad that you are making the commitment to be present here. I'm making the commitment to show up here, and when there's a mutuality of support, it feels generous. It feels wholesome. It feels held. So and it's beautiful. So I encourage you to remember, to be mindful of generosity. To support me as a teacher, and also to support True North Insight in however you can. This platform is being supported by True North Insight. Yes, thank you, Miriam. Beautiful statement. Been working with a lot of trust and faith, and I've found that as I develop a deep sense of being able to be with whatever arises, this leads to equanimity. Yes, that is equanimity, that sense of being able to be with what arises. And and that's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. So I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I'm that I was thinking of offering an outside sitting, and I'm still thinking of doing that, maybe in 2 or 3 weeks. It's just become legal to gather in groups of more than 10. And I went to Dawson College and looked around by the Peace Garden there. It's a little bit noisy. There are ventilation fans in the building, and there's a little traffic, but it would do. So I don't have a date yet. I'll post it on the TNI website when there's a date. And my intention is to try to do both, to use Wi-Fi, or to use my cell phone data to do a YouTube offering, and also to not to lose people in Fredericton and Missouri and elsewhere that join us. So, and also to also have the opportunity to see each other. That would be such a joy. So that's percolating, and I'll let you know well in advance to when that could happen. So be well, my friends. Sending lots of love to each one of you, and I wish you strong, deeply rooted, nourishing practice for your own benefit and the benefit of all beings. Be well.